The Chicago Bulls' continued mediocrity must be talked about because their play has been very shaky over the last week, and it's been very up and down. They win against the good teams and they lose against the bad teams. Very shaky, up and down. It's like a roller coaster, but we're going to get right into that right after this. So, watching the Chicago Bulls play over this last week has been very, very rough. We covered the Lakers game. This video might be a little longer. I'm going to cover a few games because I haven't really been able to post. So the Lakers, they lost 129-118. Against the Pacers, they lose 113-110. A struggling Pacers team that is now 12-36 is a team that we lose to. That is not something that can be happening as the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are much better on paper, in my opinion. I do believe that they can beat the Indiana Pacers. They don't have Halliburton, and I feel like losing to the Pacers is a team that just shouldn't happen. They lost earlier in the season to the Pacers as well, and the Pacers have our number. Pascal Siakam has our number as well. He only had 20 points this game, shot 6 for 16 from the field, 7 for 8 from the free throw line. Didn't have a crazy game, but losing this game is not acceptable. Modest had 20 points on 7-11 shooting. Vooch had 25 points on 10 of 17 shooting. Kobe had 14 points on 5 of 15 shooting. Kobe's play has been horrific over this last week in the stretch of games. His turnovers have been through the roof. Versus the Pacers, he didn't have any turnovers. But once you go and get into these later games, the turnover number increases a lot. And for Kobe, that is unusual. He's been one of our best ball handlers, and just watching him struggle and turn the ball over as much as he has, it's very hard to watch. This game is very winnable. We outscored them in the first quarter, 33-24. Second quarter, they outscored us by 5. And in the fourth quarter, they outscored us by 12. And it's just, watching them lose that game against the Pacers, it just hurts. As a Bulls fan, you hate to see that. Obviously we've had a few injuries or whatnot, but I feel like losing a game to the Pacers should not happen, especially with Halliburton being out. Obviously, Pascal Siakam, great player, and whatnot. I give him his flowers. Jarris Walker, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, and Johnny Furphy. Johnny Furphy is starting for the Indiana Pacers. There's just no way that we should be losing this game. Benedict Mathurin, there's been talks about the Bulls trying to look at him, like going for him potentially. He had 15 points in this game, 4 for 10 from the field. I just feel like this isn't a game that we should lose. But moving on to the next game that the Bulls ended up losing against the Miami Heat. It was a close one. They lost 116-113. This game was also very good. Obviously, we go toe-and-toe with the Miami Heat all the time. The playing teams. It's between the Miami Heat, Atlanta Hawks, and the Chicago Bulls for playing. It doesn't surprise me. We had a long stretch of games versus the Heat. We had 3 games in this past week against the Miami Heat. We lose the first matchup against them, and honestly, they really outplayed us. Norman Powell had 21 points. Bam had 20 points. Andrew Wiggins only had 10 points. Pelle Larsson had 15. Jaime Jaquez had 19. Khalil Ware had 12. They kind of stacked the box score. And looking at it, they outplayed us a little bit. Jalen Smith had 11 points for us. Isaac Okoro only had 8. Modest had 16. Vooch had 15. Kobe White had 14. In this game, as I talked about turnovers, he had 3 turnovers in this game. Patrick Williams, 0 points on 0 of 4 shooting. Dalen Terry, 8 points. Kevin Huerter at 15. Iowa had 23 on an 86 team. So there's some bright spots to take out of this game, but just the mediocrity of play of the Chicago Bulls, it's just been really hard to watch. They go from being really good, looking really good, like there's a lot of potential in this lineup and this roster, the youth and all that, and then they go to the next game, and everything just kind of falls apart. Turnovers stack up and whatnot. After the loss, the 116-113 loss to the Miami Heat, they go back He beat the Heat 125-118. You know, Patrick Williams had a very good game. 15 points on 5 of 12 shooting. Isaac Cora, very good game. 20 points on 7 of 12. Modest as well. 21 points on 7 of 15. And Io, coming in the starting spot, 29 points on 11 of 16 shooting, 5 for 6 from 3. You know, he's been really hot from downtown. So it's really good to see, you know, Kobe White was out for this game. And honestly, I think that played a really big role, to be honest. Because Kobe and his turnovers, as we talked about, has really been playing a huge role on this game. Obviously, our turnovers have been horrific as a team total, but seeing Kobe struggle with turnovers is not good. You know, this game, the Bulls had 24 turnovers, total turnovers. It just can't happen. You know, it just can't happen, especially as a professional team and being the players and having the players that are on this team. Watching that happen and being a Bulls fan and watching those games, it's very hard to watch. And then after that win, you come and play the Miami Heat another time. You know, we had it's a very long stretch of playing the same team, the Miami Heat, over and over again. But I feel like after a few days or a game or two of playing them, you should kind of get a rhythm and really start to play how you should be playing. And the Bulls come out here against Miami Heat and score 13 points in the first quarter. 13 points. Miami Heat went 34 points in the first quarter. We had 13. And then the Bulls come back 27-28. Only lost the second quarter, outscored in the second quarter by 1 point. It really was downhill from there, though. In the third quarter, Miami Heat scored 39 points. Bulls only scored 22. 29 points in the fourth quarter for Bulls, 33 for Miami. A 134-91 loss. You know, 43 points is unacceptable. You know, Isaac Cora, horrible shooting. I mean, not horrible. 3 for 7 from the field. Modest, bad shooting. You know, he's in his second year, though. You know, he's a young player. He's still getting everything together, kind of work through the stuff. You know, you got to give him a little leeway. But, you know, it shouldn't be happening. Vooch, 12 points on 5 of 12. Kobe, 16 points, 4 for 13 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3. Half of his points are from the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 turnovers. I would assume with 10 points, 3 for 9 from the field. You know, Patrick Williams, also an awful shooting night, 9 points, 3 of 12. Julia Phillips, 10 points, 3 of 11 from the field. So this game was just really bad. You know, obviously Trey Jones is out. Kevin Huerter was out this game as well. It's like, how can you operate a team or see what direction a team is going or where you want it to go with the play being so bad from your players? They're so inconsistent. And I do believe partially that is because of the coaching, but also on the players. If you come out here as the players and you're playing like you did against the Miami Heat and losing 134-91, obviously the Heat are always a team, their record doesn't really show, you know. But when you play them, they have grit and they play very hard. And watching the Bulls lose 134-91 is just really sickening. It's very sad. You know, it just shouldn't happen. But the Bulls have the Milwaukee Bucks coming up here tomorrow. And we're going to kind of see how that goes. Because, you know, obviously Giannis he's been, you know, the trade rumors. The Bucks they have the higher odds to win this game, obviously. But he's out. Giannis is obviously going to be out this game. He's injured. We don't know. You know, I would think he's injured, but, you know, whatever. I just think that the mediocrity of the Chicago Bulls really has to be talked about. And I think this Dario Saric trade that the Bulls made kind of is hinting towards something bigger. You know, getting Dario Saric and then the 2 second-round picks. It could be something that is looking for a bigger trade. You know, we sent Emmanuel Miller to the Cavs, and then Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis went to the Cavs as well, and then DeAndre Hunter to Sacramento. You know, I think that's one of the better AK moves, so we'll kind of see how that plays out. But looking at this schedule coming up, it's going to be a difficult few games. So the Bulls are going to have to really step it up and play good. Josh Giddey, you know, he's been in and out of the lineup because of his injury, but we'll see how this plays out. But that's going to be all for this one, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think down below that the Chicago Bulls should do coming up here on this trade deadline on Thursday. But I'll see you guys in the next one.